I came to my son's wedding. His bride said, "Why did you invite her?" "I told you not to invite her. My son kicked me out and I canceled all his payments. The next day he barged into my house. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. For 23 years, I raised my son Daniel alone. His father left when Daniel was 2, and I worked double shifts as a nurse to give him everything he needed. I watched him grow into a kind, responsible man, or so I thought. When he introduced me to Claire 6 months before their wedding, I tried to be welcoming. She was polite enough at first, though something about her smile never quite reached her eyes. The warning signs started small. Claire would make little comments about my outdated parenting style, or suggest that Daniel needed to focus on his new family now. When I offered to help with wedding planning, she'd accept my money but ignore my suggestions. I told myself it was normal. Every bride wants control of her wedding. I was just being a sensitive mother-in-law, wasn't I? 3 weeks before the wedding, I wrote a check for $12,000 to cover the venue. Claire thanked me with that same hollow smile. 2 weeks later, Daniel asked if I could help with his car payments for a few months while they saved for the honeymoon. Of course I agreed. He was my son. That's what mothers do. The wedding day arrived bright and warm. I wore a modest navy dress, nothing to outshine the bride, and arrived at the venue with a gift-wrapped stand mixer and a heart full of joy. This was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. I'd raised this boy. I'd sacrificed everything, and now I'd watch him start his own family. I walked into the reception hall, searching for my assigned table. The room buzzed with guests, flowers everywhere, soft music playing. Then I saw her, Claire, stunning in her white gown, standing near the head table. Our eyes met across the room. Her expression changed instantly, from radiant bride to something cold and hard. She strode toward me, and even in that moment, I thought maybe she was coming to thank me, to hug me, to tell me how happy she was that I was there. "Why did you come?" Her voice was low but sharp enough to cut. I blinked, confused. "Daniel invited me. I'm his mother." "I specifically told him not to invite you." She glanced around, checking who might be listening. Several guests had already turned to watch. "This is my day, and you're not welcome here." My throat tightened. "Claire, I don't understand. I paid for—" "I don't care what you paid for." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "You're a manipulative, controlling woman who can't let go of her son. Daniel and I discussed this. You weren't supposed to be here." Before I could respond, Daniel appeared beside her. My son. My boy. I looked at him, waiting for him to tell her this was a misunderstanding, that of course his mother was invited to his wedding. Instead, he couldn't meet my eyes. "Mom, maybe you should leave." His voice was quiet, almost apologetic, but the words hit like a physical blow. "Daniel?" My voice cracked. "What is she talking about?" Claire's hand slipped into his, possessive. "Tell her, Danny." He finally looked at me, and I barely recognized the expression on his face. Embarrassed, uncomfortable, weak. "Claire thinks it's better if we have some space. From you. For a while." Space? I'd given him life. I'd given him everything, and now he was asking me to leave his wedding because his new wife decided I was inconvenient? "I paid for this venue," I said, my voice shaking. "I've been paying your car note. I've done nothing but support you." "And that's the problem," Claire interjected smoothly. "You think money gives you control. It doesn't. Daniel is a grown man, my husband, and we don't need you hovering over us anymore." Several guests were openly staring now. I felt my face burning with humiliation. Somewhere a camera flashed. Someone was probably posting this to social media already. Get out! Claire's voice rose just enough for nearby tables to hear clearly. You're ruining my wedding. I looked at my son one more time, desperately hoping he'd remember who I was, what I'd done for him. But he just stood there, his hand in hers, saying nothing. So I left. I walked out of that reception hall with my head high, even as tears blurred my vision. I drove home in a daze, still wearing my navy dress, still clutching the stand mixer I never got to give them. But as I sat in my living room that evening, something inside me shifted. The hurt began to calcify into something harder, something colder. If Claire wanted to play games about money and control, she was about to learn exactly how much control I actually had. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that went cold hours ago, staring at my laptop screen. The humiliation was still fresh, but beneath it, a clearer emotion was taking shape. Calculation. For years, I'd been helping Daniel without keeping score. That's what parents do, right? We give without expecting return. But now I needed to see exactly what I'd given. I opened my banking app and started scrolling through months of transactions. $12,000 for the wedding venue. Another $8,000 for the catering deposit that Claire insisted had to be upgraded. $3,000 for her wedding dress alterations. Alterations on a dress that cost more than I made in a month. I'd been paying Daniel's car note for 7 months at $450 each. That was another $3,000 right there. The list went on. His car insurance, because it was just temporarily tight. A loan for their apartment security deposit. Furniture for their new place. Groceries when they were between paychecks. Wedding rings. I'd contributed $2,000 toward those too. By the time I finished calculating, the number on my notepad made my stomach turn. $47,000 over the past 18 months. $47,000 from a retired nurse living on a fixed income, and they'd thrown me out of the wedding I'd paid for. I pulled up Daniel's phone number, then stopped. What would I say? How could I make him understand that his mother, the woman who'd raised him alone, who'd worked overtime for years to give him a good life, deserved basic respect? No. Talking wouldn't work. Claire had already poisoned that well. I'd seen how quickly he chose her over me, how easily he let her speak for him. Words wouldn't reach him anymore. But action might. I opened my banking app again, this time navigating to the scheduled payments section. There it was. The automatic transfer for Daniel's car payment, scheduled to process in 3 days. Below it, his car insurance payment due in 2 weeks. My finger hovered over the screen. Was I really going to do this? I thought about Claire's face, twisted with contempt. I thought about Daniel, unable to meet my eyes as he asked his own mother to leave. I thought about all those guests watching, probably enjoying the drama. Yes, I was really going to do this. I canceled the car payment, then the insurance. Then I scrolled through to find every other automatic payment or transfer I'd set up to help him. The gym membership I'd been covering while they got established. The streaming services on my account that they used. A small monthly transfer I'd been making to help them save for a house. Gone. All of it. Canceled. But I wasn't finished. I pulled up my email and found the receipts for the wedding venue and catering. I'd paid those vendors directly, not through Daniel. I composed careful emails to each one, explaining that I needed copies of all payment records and contracts, particularly the sections about cancellation and refund policies. It was too late to get my money back from the wedding itself. That ship had sailed. But I needed documentation. If this was going to escalate, and something told me it would, I needed proof of everything I'd contributed. Next, I called my bank's customer service line. It was past midnight, but they had 24-hour support. I need to remove an authorized user from my accounts, I told the representative. Years ago, I'd added Daniel to my savings account just for emergencies. That access needed to end immediately. Of course, the woman said pleasantly. Can you confirm the account number? Within 20 minutes, Daniel no longer had any connection to my finances. He couldn't see my balances, couldn't make withdrawals, couldn't touch anything. We were financially separated. As dawn broke through my kitchen window, I made a list of everything I was still paying for. His phone bill on my family plan, his health insurance through my retirement benefits, a storage unit where he kept some old furniture. All of it would end. I wasn't trying to destroy him. I was simply stepping back, giving him the space his wife wanted so badly. If they were grown adults who didn't need me hovering, then they certainly didn't need my money either. By 8 a.m., I'd sent all the necessary cancellation emails and made all the required phone calls. By 9 a.m., every financial tie between us had been severed. Now, I just had to wait and see how long it took them to notice. The silence lasted exactly 4 days. On day 5, my phone rang at 7 in the morning. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring. He called again and again. By the 4th call, I answered. What did you do? His voice was frantic, none of the calm distance from the wedding. My car payment got rejected. The insurance company sent me a cancellation notice. Mom, what the hell did you do? I took a sip of my coffee, deliberate and slow. I gave you space, Daniel. Isn't that what Claire wanted? This isn't space. This is sabotage. I have to get to work. I can't afford these payments right now. Then perhaps you should ask your wife to help, or adjust your budget. You're grown adults, remember? You don't need me hovering. You can't just cut me off like this. His voice rose, tinged with panic. I've counted on that help. You can't. I can, actually, and I have. My voice stayed level, calm. 23 years of nursing had taught me how to maintain composure in crisis. Everything I was paying for was a gift, Daniel, not an obligation. And gifts can stop at any time. But, did Claire tell you she instructed you not to invite me to your wedding? I asked quietly. Did she tell you that before or after I paid for the venue? Silence on the other end. I have to go, he said finally, his voice tight. But this isn't over. He hung up. I sat there, looking at my phone, waiting to feel guilty, waiting to feel like a terrible mother. But all I felt was a strange, cold satisfaction. 2 days later, I received a Facebook message from someone named Jessica Porter. I didn't recognize the name, but her profile picture showed a woman about Claire's age. You don't know me, but I was engaged to Daniel before Claire. I saw your wedding drama going around Facebook. I need to talk to you. My heart rate picked up. I replied immediately, and within an hour, we were on the phone. Claire worked with Daniel at his old job, Jessica explained. We were engaged, had been together for 3 years. Then Claire got hired, and suddenly, Daniel was working late constantly. She befriended me too, acted like she was my friend. Meanwhile, she was telling Daniel I was cheating on him, showing him evidence that was completely fabricated. What kind of evidence? I asked, my throat tight. Edited screenshots of texts I never sent. Photos of me with a male colleague, cropped to look suspicious. She's smart about it. She isolates her targets from their support systems first, then moves in. Jessica's voice was bitter. By the time I figured out what she was doing, Daniel had already broken up with me and started dating her. I tried to warn him, but he thought I was just a jealous ex. Why are you telling me this now? Because I saw her do the exact same thing to you that she did to me. She got Daniel to cut off anyone who might see through her. And I'm guessing she's been pushing him to rely on you financially so that when she's ready, she can orchestrate a dramatic break and make you look like the villain for pulling your support. I sat down, my legs suddenly weak. She planned this? I can't prove it, but I've watched her operate. She's done this before, not just with Daniel. She dated a guy before him who had a rich uncle. Same pattern: befriend the family, get access to money, then systematically cut off anyone who might question her. Do you have any proof? I asked. Anything I could use? I have some old messages where she talked about handling Daniel's family. I saved them after everything fell apart. I'll email them to you. She paused. I know this is a lot, but that woman at your son's wedding? That's not a stressed bride. That's who she really is. After we hung up, I sat in my living room and waited for the email. When it arrived, I spent an hour reading through screenshots of conversations between Jessica and Claire, back when Claire was pretending to be Jessica's friend. Daniel's mom sounds exhausting. Does she always try to control everything? His family has money, though, right? That could be useful. You're too nice to him. Men need boundaries or they walk all over you. And then, most damning, once we get married, I'll handle the family situation. They won't be a problem. I printed everything. Then I called my lawyer. My lawyer, Patricia Hendricks, had handled my will and estate planning for years. She was in her 60s, sharp as a knife, and didn't waste time on sympathy. You want to protect your assets from your son and his wife, she stated after I explained the situation. Smart, especially given what you've told me about the daughter-in-law's history. I want to make sure that if something happens to me, my estate doesn't go to them, I clarified. And I want to ensure they can't claim I owe them anything or that I made promises I'm obligated to keep. Patricia nodded, making notes. We'll need to revise your will immediately. Right now, Daniel is your sole beneficiary. We'll change that. You can leave your estate to charities, other family members, or set up a trust with conditions. What about the money I've already given them? Can they claim I have to continue? No. Gifts aren't contracts. Unless you signed something promising ongoing support, you're legally free to stop at any time. She looked up. However, if they're smart, they might try to argue you made verbal promises or that they relied on your support to their detriment. Document everything. Save every text, email, and receipt. Already done. Good. Now, about those messages from the ex-fiancé, they're useful for understanding character, but probably not admissible in any legal proceeding. Still, keep them. You never know what might become relevant. Over the next week, Patricia drew up a new will. My estate would be divided between 3 charities I'd supported for years and a small scholarship fund in my late mother's name. Daniel would receive exactly $1, enough to prove he wasn't forgotten, just deliberately excluded. I signed the papers in her office, feeling both relieved and sad. This was my son. I'd never imagined I'd be writing him out of my will. One more thing, Patricia said. I'd recommend changing your locks and making sure all your important documents are secured. If this escalates, and it might, you want to ensure they can't access your home. Do you really think... Better safe than sorry. That evening, I called a locksmith. By the next morning, I had new locks and a security camera on my front door. It felt paranoid, but Patricia's warning echoed in my mind. The eruption came on a Tuesday afternoon. I heard the pounding first, aggressive, angry fists against my door. Then Daniel's voice. Mom, open the door. I know you're in there. I checked the security camera feed on my phone. Daniel stood on my porch, red-faced and furious. Behind him, Claire leaned against their car, watching. I opened the door but kept the chain lock engaged. Lower your voice, Daniel. The neighbors... I don't care about the neighbors. He was breathing hard, almost hyperventilating. You changed your will? You're cutting me out completely? My stomach dropped. How did he know? Then I remembered. I'd left a copy of the old will in a filing cabinet that Daniel had a key to. Clearly, he'd let himself in before I changed the locks. That's my private business, I said evenly. I'm your son. your only child. You can't just. He shoved against the door, but the chain held. Daniel, stop. You're going to hurt yourself. You're punishing me because I got married, because I chose my wife over you. His voice cracked. What kind of mother does this? Claire appeared behind him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. When she spoke, her voice was saccharine sweet. Mrs. Morrison, please. Can we just talk? All of this has gotten so out of hand. We were hurt by what happened at the wedding, but surely we can work this out like adults. I am working this out like an adult, I replied. I'm setting appropriate boundaries. Boundaries? Claire's mask slipped just slightly. You call cutting off your son boundaries? Changing your will to exclude him? That's not boundaries. That's manipulation. It's abuse. Interesting choice of words from someone who orchestrated having me thrown out of a wedding I paid for. Her eyes flashed. I knew you'd hold that over us. This is exactly why Danny needs to be free of you. You're toxic. Then you should be happy I'm giving you both space. Daniel was crying now, actually. Crying. Mom, please. I'm sorry about the wedding. Claire was stressed. I was stressed. But you can't do this. We need. What? My money? I kept my voice gentle but firm. You don't need me hovering, remember? You're grown adults. We'll fight this, Claire said suddenly, her voice hard. We'll get a lawyer. You're clearly not in your right mind. Maybe you need a psychiatric evaluation. Maybe someone needs to make sure you're competent to handle your own affairs. There it was, the threat beneath the pleading. I've just met with my lawyer, and she assures me I'm perfectly competent, I said calmly. Now, I'd like you to leave my property. If you don't, I'll call the police. Daniel stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe the mother who would accept any treatment just to stay in her son's life had died on the floor of that wedding reception. I'll remember this, Claire said softly. When you're old and alone, when you need someone to take care of you, I'll remember that you chose money over family. I closed the door without responding. Through the camera, I watched them stand there for another minute before finally walking away. My hands were shaking. I made tea, then couldn't drink it. Patricia was right. This was escalating. But I wouldn't back down. Not now. Not after they'd shown me exactly who they were. I gave myself 3 days to recover emotionally, barely leaving the house, screening all calls. I needed to be ready for whatever came next. The text message arrived 3 days later, just as I was starting to feel steady again. Mom, it's me. Can we please talk? Really talk? Claire's not here. Just us. I miss you. Daniel. I stared at the message for a long time. This was the son I remembered. The one who called me Mom without prompting, who acknowledged our relationship. Part of me, the part that had raised him and loved him unconditionally, wanted to respond immediately. But I'd learned to wait, to think, to consider whether this was genuine or just another manipulation. 20 minutes later, another text. I've been thinking about everything you said. You were right. I let Claire control too much. Can I come by this weekend? I want to apologize properly. Then, please, Mom. I know I screwed up. Just give me a chance to make this right. My finger hovered over the keyboard. What if he was sincere? What if he'd genuinely realized what had happened? Wasn't forgiveness what good mothers did? But then I remembered Claire's threat about psychiatric evaluation. I remembered the cold calculation in her eyes, and I remembered Jessica's warning. She isolates her targets from their support systems first. What if this was just another tactic? I typed carefully. Daniel, I love you, but I need to see real change, not just words. If you're serious about rebuilding our relationship, it starts with you and Claire respecting my boundaries. That means no more demands for money, no more manipulation, and a genuine apology from both of you for what happened at the wedding." His response came quickly. "That's fair. Can I come over Sunday afternoon? Just me? I'll think about it." I didn't commit. I needed advice. That evening, I went to my church's support group for the first time in months. I'd been attending this church for 15 years, but I'd been so busy helping Daniel that I'd let my friendships lapse. Now I realized how isolated I'd become. Margaret. Dorothy, one of the group leaders, embraced me warmly. "We've missed you. How have you been?" Over coffee and cookies in the church basement, I told my story to the small group of women, all around my age, all with complicated family situations of their own. I expected judgment. Instead, I found understanding. "My daughter did something similar," said Ruth, a retired teacher. "Married a man who slowly cut her off from everyone who cared about her. It took years, but she finally saw what he was doing. Sometimes you have to let them hit bottom. But what if he never comes back?" I asked quietly. "What if I lose him forever?" "Then you lose someone who chose to be lost," Dorothy said gently. "You can't love someone into treating you well, Margaret. That's not how it works." Linda, who'd been quiet until now, spoke up. "My son's wife did the money thing, too. Kept asking for help, then getting angry when I couldn't give more. Finally, I had to cut them off completely. It was the hardest thing I ever did." She paused. "But you know what? 2 years later, after she divorced him and he lost everything, he came back. He apologized. We rebuilt, slowly. Sometimes people need to face consequences to grow up. And sometimes they don't come back," Ruth added honestly. "You have to be prepared for that too." I nodded, fighting tears. I just wanted to be a good mother. "You were a good mother," Dorothy said firmly. "You raised him. You supported him. But good mothers also teach boundaries. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and let someone face the results of their choices." We talked for 2 hours. When I left, I had 3 phone numbers, an invitation to join their weekly coffee group, and something I hadn't felt in weeks: support. The next morning, I responded to Daniel's text. "Sunday at 2 p.m. Just you. If Claire shows up, or if you bring demands for money, I'll ask you to leave immediately. This is about our relationship, not finances. Understood?" "Thank you, Mom." But I didn't relax. I called Patricia and asked her to be on standby Sunday afternoon. I told Dorothy about the meeting, and she promised to call me Sunday evening to check in. I wasn't going into this blind or alone anymore. Sunday arrived cold and gray. I made coffee and waited, watching the security camera feed. At exactly 2 p.m., Daniel's car pulled up. He got out alone. I waited another minute, watching for Claire. The car stayed empty. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door. "Hi, Mom." He looked exhausted, thinner than I remembered. "Thank you for seeing me. Come in." We sat in my living room, an awkward distance between us on the couch. He held a coffee mug but didn't drink. "I've been an idiot," he started. "Everything you said was true. I let Claire dictate our relationship. I let her kick you out of the wedding. I've been weak and stupid, and I'm sorry." It sounded rehearsed, sincere but rehearsed. "I appreciate that," I said carefully. "But apologies without change are just words, Daniel. I know. That's why I want to make this right." He finally met my eyes. What would it take for us to go back to the way things were? And there it was, the trap. The way things were meant me paying for everything, meant me accepting whatever treatment Claire dished out, meant no boundaries. "We can't go back," I said quietly. "But we might be able to go forward." if you and Claire both commit to treating me with respect. Of course. Claire wants that too. She feels terrible about the wedding. I doubted that very much. Then she can tell me herself, I said. In person, with a genuine apology. Daniel's expression flickered, just for a second. Right. Yes, I'll talk to her. We talked for another hour, carefully circling around the real issues. He didn't ask for money, which was smart. But he kept mentioning how difficult things were, how stressed they were financially, how much they were struggling, planting seeds. When he left, he hugged me. I love you, Mom. We'll work this out. After he drove away, I sat in my quiet house and realized something. I didn't believe him. They came back together on Wednesday evening, unannounced. The doorbell rang at 6:30 p.m. I checked the security camera and felt my stomach tighten. Daniel and Claire, both dressed nicely. Claire holding a bouquet of flowers. They looked like a picture-perfect young couple coming to make amends. I almost didn't open the door, but I needed to see this through. Margaret! Claire's smile was brilliant, all teeth and warmth. We brought you flowers, peace offerings. She laughed lightly, as if the wedding incident was just a funny misunderstanding. I took the flowers without inviting them in. Thank you. Can we come in? Daniel asked. We really want to talk, to apologize properly, both of us. Against my better judgment, I opened the door wider. They settled on my couch, sitting close together, presenting a united front. Claire kept that bright smile, but I could see the calculation behind her eyes. Margaret, I owe you a huge apology, Claire began, her voice dripping with sincerity. The wedding was... I was so stressed, and I took it out on you. That was completely unfair. You've been nothing but generous and supportive, and I treated you terribly. It was a good performance. If I hadn't read those messages from Jessica, I might have believed it. I appreciate you saying that, I replied neutrally. I want us to start fresh, Claire continued. You're Daniel's mother, and that means your family to me too. I want us to have a real relationship, a good one. That's what I want as well, I said carefully. Good, Claire beamed. So, here's what we're thinking. We know things got tense with the money situation, and we totally understand why you felt you needed to pull back. That makes sense. Here it comes, I thought. But, Daniel picked up smoothly, we've been talking, and we think the best way to move forward is to clear the air completely. No more financial stuff between us. Clean slate. Clean slate sounds good, I agreed. Right, Claire said. So what we thought is, you reinstate the help you were giving us, we promise to be more appreciative and respectful, and we all move forward like one big happy family. I blinked. You want me to start paying for things again? Well, paying for things sounds so transactional, Claire said with a little laugh. We prefer to think of it as family supporting family. That's what families do, right? And in return, you'll treat me with respect? I asked slowly. Exactly, Daniel looked relieved. We'll make sure you're included in everything. No more misunderstandings. And what about the wedding? I asked. The fact that I was humiliated in front of your guests after paying thousands of dollars for the venue? Claire's smile stiffened slightly. I apologized for that. What more do you want? I admitted I was wrong. An apology without changed behavior is manipulation, I said quietly. The temperature in the room shifted. Claire's smile didn't quite reach her eyes anymore. What does that mean? She asked. It means I noticed that your apology came with conditions, that your fresh start requires me to resume financial support. That's not reconciliation. That's a transaction. Are you saying you won't help us? Daniel's voice rose. We're struggling, Mom. Do you know what it's like? The car payment alone is your responsibility, I finished. You're adults. Married adults with two incomes. Two incomes that barely cover rent? Daniel stood up, his calm facade cracking. We counted on your help. We made decisions based on it. That was your choice, not mine. I never promised lifelong support. Claire stood too, and now the mask dropped completely. You're a bitter, vindictive old woman. You can't stand that Daniel chose me over you, so you're punishing us financially. I'm not punishing you. I'm simply not rewarding bad behavior. Bad behavior? Claire's voice went cold. We're trying to build a life together. We're trying to start a family, but you're too selfish to help your own son. Help with what? I interrupted. Help you continue treating me like an ATM? Help you isolate Daniel from anyone who might question your behavior? I talked to Jessica, Claire, your ex-friend. Daniel's ex-fiancée. I know exactly what you do. Claire's face went pale, then flushed red. That crazy bitch has been spreading lies about me for years. Are they lies? I looked at Daniel. Did Claire tell you Jessica was cheating? Did she show you proof? Daniel looked away, and I had my answer. You have no idea what you're talking about, Claire hissed. Daniel and I are happy. We're building something real. And if you can't support that, if you can't be a good mother and help your son when he needs you, then maybe you don't deserve to be in his life at all. Maybe I don't, I said quietly. If being in his life means financing yours. You'll regret this, Claire said, grabbing her purse. When you're old and sick and need someone to take care of you, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember that you chose money over your son. And you'll remember that you chose money over integrity, I replied. Daniel looked torn, standing between us. For a moment I thought he might stay, might see what was happening. But Claire's hand found his, and he let her pull him toward the door. We're done, Claire announced. You want to cut us off? Fine, but don't expect us to come running when you need us. Don't expect to be in our lives when we have children. You made your choice. They left, Claire slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I stood in my living room, heart pounding, hands shaking. The flowers they'd brought mocked me from the coffee table. Cheap carnations, already wilting. But I'd stood firm. I hadn't given in. And though fear flickered through me, fear of losing Daniel forever, fear of being alone, it was accompanied by something stronger. Resolve. The breaking point came 2 weeks later at the most unexpected place, a family court mediation office. Claire and Daniel had filed for a restraining order against me, claiming I was harassing them and threatening their financial stability. It was absurd, but it was also clever. It forced me into a legal situation where I'd have to defend myself publicly. Patricia was furious when she saw the filing. This is harassment on their part. They're trying to intimidate you into giving them money by dragging you through the legal system. Can they win? Not with what we have. But we'll need to present everything. The messages from Jessica, your financial records, documentation of what actually happened. Are you ready for that? I was. The mediation was scheduled in a bland conference room with beige walls and uncomfortable chairs. A court mediator, Mrs. Chen, sat at the head of the table. Daniel and Claire arrived with their lawyer, a young man who looked fresh out of law school. I came with Patricia, 3 binders of documentation, and Jessica Porter, who had agreed to testify about Claire's history. Let's begin, Mrs. Chen said. Mr. Morrison, Ms. Morrison, you've filed for a restraining order against Margaret Morrison, claiming harassment and financial coercion. Can you explain your concerns? Daniel glanced at Claire, who nodded. He cleared his throat. My mother has been unstable since our wedding. She became angry that my wife and I wanted some independence, and she's been threatening us, cutting off essential financial support that we relied on, and trying to isolate me from my wife. Essential financial support? Patricia interjected. Can you clarify what you mean by essential? She was helping with car payments, insurance, rent support. Helping, Patricia emphasized. These were gifts, correct? Not contractual obligations? Their lawyer spoke up. My clients made life decisions based on promised support from Mrs. Morrison. Pulling that support suddenly and vindictively constitutes financial abuse of a dependent adult child. I almost laughed. Daniel was 30 years old with a full-time job. Mrs. Morrison, the mediator turned to me. What's your perspective? I supported my son financially for years, I said calmly. But after being publicly humiliated at his wedding, a wedding I paid for, and after discovering that his wife has a pattern of manipulating partners to isolate them from family while accessing their resources, I chose to establish healthy boundaries. That's a lie, Claire burst out. You're twisting everything because you can't accept that Danny loves me. Ms. Morrison, Mrs. Chen said firmly, please let Mrs. Morrison finish. Patricia opened the first binder. We have documentation of every payment Mrs. Morrison made to or for her son over the past 18 months. The total exceeds $47,000. We also have testimony from a witness regarding Ms. Claire Morrison's pattern of behavior in previous relationships. Jessica leaned forward. I was engaged to Daniel before Claire. She systematically destroyed our relationship by fabricating evidence of infidelity, isolating me from Daniel, and positioning herself as his rescuer. I have messages where she discussed handling his family situation. This is ridiculous, their lawyer said. Testimony from a jealous ex-girlfriend is hardly credible. I have the messages, Patricia said, opening the second binder. Screenshots of conversations between Ms. Porter and Ms. Claire Morrison, where Ms. Claire Morrison explicitly discussed targeting Daniel's family for financial benefit and planning to cut off his mother after the wedding. She spread the printed messages across the table. Mrs. Chen picked them up, reading carefully. Claire's face went from red to white. These are taken out of context, Claire said, but her voice wavered. Jessica edited them. They have metadata, Patricia continued smoothly. Timestamps, platform verification, they're authentic. I want to see the wedding venue contract, Mrs. Chen said suddenly. Patricia produced it. Mrs. Morrison paid $12,000 directly to the venue. The contract lists her as the payer, not her son or his wife. And they threw her out of that wedding, Jessica added, in front of everyone after she paid for it. Daniel had gone very quiet, staring at the messages on the table. I watched him reading them, seeing the wheels turn in his mind. Danny, don't listen to them, Claire said, grabbing his hand. They're trying to turn you against me. Your mother is manipulating everyone. Did you tell me not to invite her to the wedding? Daniel asked quietly. What? At the wedding. You told her I said not to invite her. Did I say that? Claire's eyes darted between us. You were stressed. You didn't know what you wanted. Did I say not to invite my mother to my wedding? His voice was louder now. This is exactly what she wants. Claire's control was slipping. She wants to get between us, to make you doubt me. Answer the question, Claire. She was going to ruin everything. Your mother is controlling and manipulative, and I was protecting you. Claire stood up, her voice rising. You think you'd have a life if it wasn't for me? You'd still be a mama's boy, letting her run everything. The room went silent. Ms. Morrison, Mrs. Chen said slowly, are you saying you orchestrated the exclusion of Mrs. Morrison from the wedding without your husband's knowledge? Claire realized her mistake. That's not, and these messages about handling the family situation and accessing financial resources, are those authentic? I was venting to a friend. Everyone complains about their in-laws. Before you were married, Patricia pointed out. Before you'd even met the in-laws, you were planning this. Daniel stood up abruptly. I need air. He walked out. Claire moved to follow, but Mrs. Chen stopped her. "Ms. Morrison, please sit down. We're not finished." For the next hour, Patricia methodically destroyed every claim in their restraining order filing. No harassment. I'd responded only when contacted. No threats. I'd simply withdrawn voluntary financial support. No financial abuse. There was no legal obligation to support adult children. By the end, even their lawyer looked uncomfortable. "Based on what I've seen," Mrs. Chen said finally, "I'm recommending this restraining order be denied. Furthermore, I'm concerned about the motivation behind this filing. Mrs. Morrison, do you wish to pursue a counterclaim for harassment?" Patricia looked at me. I thought about it. About dragging this out. About revenge. "No," I said quietly. "I just want to be left alone." When we left the building, Daniel was sitting on a bench outside, his head in his hands. Claire was nowhere to be seen. He looked up as I passed. "Mom, not now, Daniel," I said gently. "You have some thinking to do." I walked to my car, Patricia beside me, and drove home. The call came that evening. The restraining order was officially denied. Furthermore, the court had noted concerns about potential abuse in Daniel and Claire's relationship and had flagged it for follow-up. I'd won, but it didn't feel like victory yet. The collapse of Claire's facade was swift and complete. 3 days after the mediation, Daniel showed up at my door alone. This time, he looked genuinely broken, not manipulative, not rehearsed, just devastated. "Can I come in?" His voice was hoarse. I let him in. We sat in the same living room where he'd tried to manipulate me weeks before, but everything had changed. "She's gone," he said simply. Claire left. I didn't feel triumph. I felt sad. What happened? After the mediation, I confronted her about everything. The messages, Jessica, the planning. She denied it all at first, said everyone was lying. He laughed bitterly. "But I'm not stupid, Mom. I saw those messages. I saw the dates. She was planning to cut you off before we even got married." "I'm sorry, Daniel. Don't be." He looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I should be apologizing to you for everything, for the wedding, for how I let her treat you, for choosing her over you again and again." His voice cracked. "You tried to warn me, and I called you controlling. You were in love. She manipulated you. That's not an excuse." He wiped his eyes. "I'm a grown man. I should have seen it. Jessica tried to tell me. You tried to show me. But I didn't want to see it because admitting I was wrong meant admitting I'd destroyed my relationship with my mother for someone who was using me." We sat in silence for a moment. "When did she leave?" I asked. 2 days ago. She packed everything while I was at work, cleaned out our joint bank account, the one I stupidly opened with her, and left a note saying she couldn't be with someone who chose his toxic mother over his wife." He laughed again, that broken sound. "She took the wedding gifts too, everything of value. Did you file a police report?" "For what? The bank account was joint. The gifts were technically ours together. She didn't break any laws. She's just a terrible person." He paused. "Her parents won't talk to me. Her friends won't tell me where she is. It's like she just vanished." Over the next week, I learned more. Claire had quit her job the day after the mediation. She'd told them Daniel was abusive and she needed to relocate for her safety. A lie, but effective. Her social media went dark. She'd effectively erased herself from their life. Patricia's investigator found more. Claire had done this before, twice. 2 other men, both with family money, both systematically isolated from their support systems, before Claire moved on to the next target. She had a pattern, almost a blueprint. "She's probably already working on her next victim," Patricia said. "People like this don't change, they just find new targets." But Claire made one critical mistake in her exit. She'd sent Daniel a final text message, furious and unfiltered, after he'd frozen their joint credit cards. "You were always going to be nothing without me. A mama's boy with no backbone." I gave you the best year of your life, and this is how you repay me? By choosing that bitter old woman over your wife? You'll regret this. You and your controlling bitch mother deserve each other. Daniel showed me the message. I saved it. Thought you might want it, in case she tries anything else. Thank you. The social fallout was severe. For them, not me. Wedding guests who'd witnessed my humiliation saw the court filings, the denied restraining order. Word spread. Claire's friends distanced themselves once they learned about the pattern. Daniel's friends, the real ones, reached out to apologize for not seeing what was happening. Jessica called to check on me. I heard Claire ran. Good. Maybe she'll think twice before trying this again. I doubt it. Yeah, me too, but at least Daniel's free now. The financial consequences hit Daniel hard. The joint account Claire had drained had $8,000, money he'd been saving for months. The credit card she'd maxed out before he could freeze it had another $5,000 in charges. Wedding gifts worth thousands were gone. He filed for divorce immediately, citing abandonment and fraud. Claire didn't contest it. She never even responded to the papers. 6 months later, it was finalized. I'm starting over at 30, Daniel told me one evening, sitting in my kitchen like he used to as a teenager. No savings, credit card debt, a failed marriage, living in a studio apartment. But you're free, I said gently. Yeah, he managed a small smile. I'm free. I didn't offer him money, not yet. He needed to rebuild on his own terms, to learn to stand without a crutch, whether that crutch was his mother's money or his wife's manipulation. But I did help in other ways. I co-signed his apartment lease when his credit wasn't enough. I had him over for dinner twice a week. I listened when he needed to talk, and slowly, very slowly, we began to rebuild trust. I don't expect you to forgive me quickly, he said one night. I know I destroyed something that might never fully heal. No, I agreed. It might not, but we can build something new, something better, something based on mutual respect instead of obligation. He nodded. I'd like that. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, Daniel brought me revised paperwork. He wanted to set up a payment plan to pay me back for the wedding venue. Daniel, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Not because you're demanding it, because it's right. He looked at me seriously. You taught me better than how I behaved. Let me prove I remember those lessons. We worked out a modest monthly payment he could afford. It would take years to repay, but that wasn't the point. The point was that he understood. Respect, responsibility, and love weren't negotiable. Claire never resurfaced in our lives. I occasionally checked online, curious if she'd targeted someone new, but she'd scrubbed her presence from social media entirely. Patricia's final report came 6 months later. Claire had moved to another state, changed her name slightly, and was engaged to someone new, a man whose mother had recently died, leaving him a substantial inheritance. Same pattern, Patricia noted. Different victim. I felt sorry for whoever she'd found next. But I couldn't save everyone. I'd saved my son, and that was enough. 2 years later, my life looked completely different and infinitely better. I'd reconnected with my church community. Dorothy, Ruth, Linda, and I met every Tuesday for coffee. I joined a book club, volunteered at the local hospital, and took watercolor painting classes. For years, I'd poured all my energy into supporting Daniel. Now I was rediscovering who I was outside of being someone's mother. I traveled, reconnected with old friends, and hosted joyful holiday dinners. Daniel was finding himself too. He'd thrown himself into therapy after the divorce. I let her convince me that normal boundaries were controlling, he told me. I didn't trust my own judgment anymore. Over months we rebuilt, slowly, carefully. He paid me back faithfully every month, and more importantly, he showed up. He called just to talk. He remembered my birthday. He asked about my life. I'm proud of you, I told him one evening. His eyes got wet. I'm trying, Mom. Every day. He got a promotion, moved into a better apartment, and started dating carefully. He introduced me to Sarah 6 months later. She was kind, intelligent, with healthy family relationships. When she met me, she brought a hostess gift and asked genuine questions. No manipulation. I like her, I told Daniel later. She's different. Good, different, he smiled. It's weird how easy healthy feels once you know what it looks like. Meanwhile, my life without constant financial drain was comfortable. I renovated my bathroom, bought a new car, took a cruise to Alaska. This is what you should have been doing all along, Ruth said, living your life instead of funding someone else's. The contrast with Claire was stark. Her engagement to Harold fell apart when his sisters noticed her isolating behavior. After that, her pattern became harder to sustain. Word spread. Women warning each other. She tried twice more to target wealthy men, but both relationships imploded quickly. The last update showed Claire working retail, living with roommates, on her third job in a year. Her social media was full of bitter posts blaming everyone else. I felt pity more than vindication. She'd never understand her actions had consequences. But that wasn't my problem anymore. My joy was Tuesday coffee dates, watercolor classes, holidays with Daniel and Sarah building new traditions. You seem happier than I've ever seen you, Dorothy observed. I am. For the first time in years, I'm not carrying anyone else's burdens. At 62, I'd learned that loving someone didn't mean destroying yourself. That being a good mother didn't mean accepting abuse. Daniel learned it too. Together, we were building something better. As for Claire, she'd burned every bridge and now lived with the consequences. That was justice. And I was finally, truly free. Looking back now, I understand that the hardest lesson was also the most valuable. You teach people how to treat you. For years, I taught Daniel that I'd accept anything to maintain our relationship. I taught him that boundaries didn't matter. I taught him that love meant unlimited sacrifice, even when that sacrifice destroyed me. Claire saw that pattern and exploited it. She wasn't the problem. She was the symptom. The problem was that I'd never learned to value myself enough to demand respect. I've learned now. Daniel's learned too. If you're in my situation, supporting someone who treats you poorly, giving endlessly to someone who only takes, ask yourself, am I helping them grow, or am I enabling them to stay broken? Real love sometimes means stepping back. Real family respects boundaries. Real relationships are built on mutual respect, not financial obligation. What would you have done in my place? Would you have cut them off? Forgiven immediately? Found a middle ground? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe for more real-life family stories. Sometimes we need to hear that we're not alone in these impossible situations. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone find the courage to set their own boundaries before it's too late. Remember, you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved, but you can always save yourself.